Hare Krishna, a very warm welcome to all the devotees to our program Srimad Bhagavatam study. In this program, we are doing a detailed study of Srimad Bhagavatam. Our journey has now reached to this 73rd class. Already we have done 72 classes. And in these 72 classes, we have traveled from the first verse of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam till to the seventh chapter of the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Right now, we are in the seventh chapter of the second canto, and already we have started the study of this seventh chapter. Last time we had one full class on the seventh chapter, where we discussed from verse number 6 to verse number 33, verse number 32 rather. Today we will continue our journey from verse number 33 onwards, and we'll try to cover next 16-17 verses all the way up to verse number 49. So, little background about this class, what the chapter is. So, it is about the discussion between Narad Muni and Brahmaji. Already there was a question asked uh, from Shukdev Goswami by Parikshit Maharaj about the creation of the universe. So, Shukdev Goswami uh, gives the citation of the conversation between Narad Muni and Brahmaji. He says that the same topic was discussed between Narad Muni and Brahmaji, and let me explain you based on that topic. So that discussion is going on, and he starts to narrate the discussion between Narad Muni and Brahmaji in order to explain the topic of creation. So this started some in chapter number 5 of the second canto. Then from chapter number 5 to chapter number 6, all the way he explains, Brahmaji explains how the Supreme Lord uh, Karanadaksha Vishnu is the creator of this universe. I am actually only creating what has already been created by Karanadaksha Vishnu. And he starts to glorify, and then he explains the whole process of creation, how the universes have come from the Lord, how each and every detailed ingredient also has come from the limbs of the Lord. Like that, a complete narration is given. And in the end, Brahmaji mentions to Narad Muni that now I have answered all your questions, but now I would like to give you a little explanation what I want to speak. And I want to speak about the Leela avatar of the Lord. So then that becomes the subject matter of chapter number 7 of second canto, where Narad Muni starts the discussion by describing various Leela avatars of the Lord. So that is what we had discussed so far. So the Leela avatar description of the Lord has not been completed yet. We were discussing the description about Lord Krishna and so on in the previous class where we ended last time. So we will continue from there. But before that, let us do our regular Nitya Karma of the Mangalacharan and the revision of the previous class. And both the items will be done today by Rakeshji. Rakeshji, please go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवम् साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्ता राधा कान्ता नमोऽस्तुते तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी श्रीराधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृष्मानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयम् उदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवत्योत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोपकुमाराय गोविंदाय नमो नमः।
Very
Thank you.
nice, Prabhuji. So please don't go away, and then you need to do the recap also of the previous class. So once again, inviting Rakesh Prabhu from Meerut to kindly recap the previous class for all of us. Thank you.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 7, Scheduled Incarnations with Specific Functions. In the class, various incarnations of the Lord were discussed as described by Lord Brahmaji as hereunder. Verse 6 and 7, Nar Narayana. The Lord appeared in twin forms as Narayana and Nara to exhibit his personal way of austerity and penance. Celestial beauties, the companions of Cupid, went to try to break his vows, but they were unsuccessful, for they saw that many beauties like them were emanating from him by his mystic internal potency, and there was no need to be attracted by others externally, just like Prabhuji gave an example, just like a halwai who is always manufacturing sweetmeats has very little desire to eat them. Verse number 8, Prashni The Lord incarnated himself as Prashni just to satisfy a pure devotee of the Lord, Prince Dhruva. The Lord, being satisfied by his prayers, awarded him the Dhruv planet. Verse number 9, Prithu. This incarnation was due to other King Maharaja Venu, who went astray from the path of righteousness, and the Brahmanas chastised him by the thunderbolt curse. The Lord, by his causeless mercy, descended as his son by the name of Prithu. Prithu delivered the king Vena from hell and rectified the disorders on the earth. He produced all kinds of crops. Verse number 10, Rishabdev. The Lord appeared as the son of Sudevi, the wife of King Nabhi, and was known as Rishabdev. He performed Jad Yoga to equibalance the mind. Verse number 11, Hayagriv. The Lord appeared as the Hayagriv incarnation in a sacrifice performed by Brahma. When he breathed, all his sounds of Vedic hymns came out of his nostrils. Matsya. At the end of millennium, the Lord in the fish incarnation saved not only all living entities, namely the demigods, animals, men, and great sages, but also saved Vedas. Verse number 13, Kurma. When the demigods and demons were churning the ocean of milk with the Mandara mountain to extract nectar, the Lord then assumed the tortoise incarnation in order to serve the resting place for the Mandara mountain. Verse number 14, Narsimhadev. The Lord assumed the incarnation of Narsimhadev in order to vanquish the great fears of the demigods by killing the king of demons, Hiranyakashipu. Verse number 15 and 16, Hari. The Lord appeared in this incarnation after hearing the elephant's plea, whose leg was attacked in a river by a crocodile and was much aggrieved. Verse number 17 and 18, Vamandev. The Lord in this incarnation appeared as the son of Aditi. He took away all the lands of Bali Maharaj on the pretense of asking for a measurement of 3 footsteps of land. King Bali dedicated his own personal body to fulfill the measurement of the Lord's third step. Verse number 19, Hamsa Avatar. This incarnation explained the full signs of devotional service, which is especially understandable by persons who are surrendered unto Lord Vasudeva, the personality of Godhead. Verse number 20, Manu. As the Manu incarnation, the Lord became the descendant of the Manu dynasty and ruled over all the miscreant rulers of different planets. Verse number 21, Dhanvantari. The Lord in this incarnation of Dhanvantari very quickly cures the diseases of the ever diseased living entities. He is the only one who inaugurated the knowledge of medicine in the universe. Verse number 22, Parshuram. The Lord in this incarnation as the sage Parshuram uprooted those unwanted Kshatriya kings who appeared as the thorns on the earth. He 21 times uprooted the Kshatriyas with his sharpened chopper. Verse number 25, 23 to 25, Ramchandra. The Lord, along with his plenary expansions, appeared in the family of Maharaja Ikshvaku as the Lord of his internal potency Sita. He vanquished Raman, who committed a great offense against him. Verse number 26 to 33, Krishna Avatar. The Lord descends with his plenary portion in his original form to diminish the stress on the world. Many pastimes of the Lord were discussed, like the killing of Putna, killing of Shaktasur, and the breaking of the two Arjun trees from where emerged Nalkuvera and Manigriva, and they regained their original form and went their particular destinations. Kalia Nagmardan, saving Brajvasis from forest fire, Damodar Lila, saving his foster father Nand Maharaj from the fear of demigod Varun, Govardhan Lila. These are superhuman activities, and who can perform such Herculean tasks but the Supreme Lord? While describing Damodar Lila, Prabhuji very well elaborated the difference between Mahamaya and Yogmaya. The function of Mahamaya is to make us forget that we are part and parcel of Lord. This Mahamaya provides lot of allurement in this material world so that living entity engage in these goodies only. Yogmaya, Yoga is connected to the Lord and Maya is taking away from the Lord. This Yogmaya is an oxymoron. Yogmaya acts for pure devotees in order to facilitate the Leela of the Lord. As in Damodar Leela, Yashoda Mata genuinely thinks that Krishna is her child and not Supreme Lord. So, if he may understand that Krishna is God, then she will not relish the pastimes of Krishna. Her natural motherly affection will go away. So, this Yogmaya makes Yashoda forget that this baby is actually Lord Krishna. So, Maya potency make one forgetful. In case of Mahamaya, she makes the conditioned living entity forgetful of the Lord. But in case of pure devotee, Yogmaya makes pure devotees forgetful of the Godhead of the Supreme Lord, mainly to facilitate the pastimes of the Lord and to bring devotion closer to the Lord. In the same way, while telling about Govardhan Leela, very well illustrated, why Govardhan Leela is so special. Why Govardhan Leela is only second to Radha Kund. The difference is, while Lord performed different pastimes in Vrindavan, he did it in different rasas. Like in Damodar Leela, there will be only Vatsalya ras. While doing Leela with gopis, there is only Madhurya rasa. Similarly, his pastimes with his friends were in Sakhya ras. But in Govardhan Leela, for 7 days and 7 nights, Lord was performing these pastimes with different rasas, with different devotees at one point, at one place. So all the rasas were enjoyed by the Lord. So that is the speciality of the Govardhan Leela. Thank you.
Very nice, Prabhuji. Thank you very much. Specifically, the last 2 points that you mentioned about the difference between Yoga Maya and Mahamaya. Very well illustrated, very well presented also. And then also the little detail about the speciality of Govardhan. Why Govardhan Parvat is the next to only Radha Kund as a sacred place, as a holy place. Why Govardhan Parvat is only second to Radha Kund. So because the Lord enjoyed all the various devotional rasas and at the same time, at the same place. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. It only one rasa at one place. So thank you very much. Very nicely presented. Specifically, it was very clear. Just want to check with you. Did you prepared a write-up for this, or how did you make it very smooth and very fluent? Just for my understanding, for my curiosity.
Prabhuji,
Hmm.
I wrote up in the copy.
Yeah, you wrote up in the copy. Yes, that is good.
Yes.
That is good. But you wrote up in a very nice way, very presentable way, and so that is something which others can also learn. That if they want to present, need not be. We may not be very expert in presenting our Krishna conscious presentation in the beginning. So, like a young child practices by writing in a copy which is ruled, which is marked with lines, so that when he writes, he doesn't go down or he doesn't go up, he writes in a line. So, similarly, when we are presenting, we can prepare well in advance and then write few things, and then maybe while we are presenting, we can present by reading whatever we have written, and sometimes we can, when we gain little more confidence, we can even present extempore by our memory, by our experience, realization. So this very nice. I really appreciate Rakesh Prabhu's endeavor and appreciate his effort. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Yeah. So
Thank you, Prabhuji, for encouraging me.
yeah. So now we move to our subject matter of the class today. And as you can see, we are in the first section of the seventh chapter, various incarnations of the Lord. We have already done till 33rd, like Rakesh ji already revised just now till the 33rd verse. So then we will continue our journey from 33rd verse onwards till almost till the 49th verse. So we will cover the second section, and then we will also cover the next section, which is Bhagavan is superior to Paramatma and Brahman. Hmm. So while let me give you a little overview of the class right now. So as you can know that from the previous chapter number 6, Brahmaji have already described about the questions that Narad Muni has asked. Now Brahmaji is starting a discussion which he wanted to describe. It is not out of any obligation to answer any question by Narad Muni, but Brahmaji like to recite something, like to speak something about the Lord, and that is about the Leela avatar of the Lord. So he's giving that explanation, the list of various incarnations of the Lord. And then after giving that list will complete at verse number 39. He will again bring out this point that it is impossible to understand by the Lord by one's own endeavor. If we become very great, if we become very knowledgeable by materialistic endeavors, we cannot understand the greatness of the Lord. The Lord greatness only can only be understood by uh, humble surrender and service. That is the only way to understand the Lord's greatness. And in that regard, he gives various verses. So it is interesting to see what are those details of these verses. And then finally, he switches the topic. He says that I have already described about the Leela avatar, about the Purush avatar, about the creation, etc., etc. Now, let me also give you some discussion about various aspects of the ultimate absolute truth, which is Paramatma, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan feature of the Lord. So he then starts to describe Paramatma, Brahman, and Bhagavan feature, where he ultimately mentions that Bhagavan feature is actually superior to both Paramatma and Brahman. And in these 47, 48, and 49th verse, these are not relatively very simple verses. They are little complicated, but we will try to uncomplicate for you how that message that Bhagavan is superior to Paramatma and Brahman comes out from these three verses. So that will be the agenda of the class for today. Maybe for the next 1 hour, we will discuss all these points. Okay, so we will quickly go to where we left last time. And again, I will request maybe a couple of devotees, maybe three or two or three devotees to help read the text in the class.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
So
I am here.
Vrindavaneshwari, okay, Vrindavaneshwari Mataji will be reading it. Anyone else?
Prabhuji, I will also recite.
Okay, Rajneesh Prabhu is also there. Okay, so we will divide these verses between two of you. Thank you very much. So first of all, we will give opportunity to Vrindavaneshwari Mataji.
Yeah.
Mataji, please go ahead.
Yes. Hare Krishna.
Hmm.
Various incarnations of the Lord Krishna, superhuman activities. When the Lord was engaged in his pastimes of rasa dance in forest of Vrindavan, enlivening the sexual desires of the wives of inhabitants of Vrindavan by sweet and name Shankhachura, a rich follower of the treasure of heaven, Kuvera, kidnapped the damsels, and the Lord severed his head from his trunk.
Hmm. So this is another pastime that is being mentioned here. Again, some of these pastimes are like superhuman activities of the Lord. So this pastime is related to the Ras dance, Ras Leela of the Lord. So in the Ras Leela, the Lord was engaged in experiencing the Madhurya Rasa with the gopis. And while that pastime was going on, that demon named Shankachuda uh, kidnapped the gopis, and ultimately Lord punished this uh, uh, act of Shankachuda by severing his head. Uh, so this is what is mentioned in the verse here, but Prabhupada also gave some more details that this pastime is celebrated as a festival of Holi, where the effigy of Shankachuda is burnt 1 day prior to the festival of Holi. So that is the detail that Prabhupada gives in the purport. And then we go to the 34th and 35th verse. Yes, Mataji.
Yeah. All demonic personalities like Dhenuka, Baka, Keshi, Arishta, Chanur, Mushtik, Kuvalyapida, elephant, Kamsa, Yavana, Narakasura, and Pondrak, great marshals like Salva, Dvivid, monkey, and Balvala, Dantavakra, the seven bulls, Shambhara, Viduratha, and Rukmi, as all as also great warriors like Kamboj, Matsya, Kuru, Srinjya, and Kekaya would all fight vigorously, either with the Lord Hari directly or with him under his names of Baldeva, Arjuna, Bhima, etc. And the demons, thus being killed, would attain either the impersonal Brahmajyoti or his personal abode in Vaikuntha planets.
Hmm. So in the previous verses, we discussed from verse number 27 till 33 that superhuman activities of Lord Krishna has been described, where uh, activities like killing of Putana, and then uprooting the Arjuna trees, Kaliya Daman, and then Damodar Leela, etc. All those were very superhuman activities we could see in those pastimes. But here in these verse number 34 to 35, a long list of all those personalities is given which were killed by directly by the Lord or maybe through his uh, expansions like Baldev or Arjuna or Bhima, etc. So all those list has been given here, and here uh, Prabhupada mentions that all of these people who were killed, they either achieved Brahma Jyoti or they achieved the Vaikuntha planets. So Prabhupada gives this detail that those people who understood the Lord as the Supreme Lord, they attained Vaikuntha planets, and those people who still fought with the Lord in enmity, they achieved impersonal Brahmajyoti. They achieved this Sayujya Mukti, but the other achieves more like Salokya Mukti, like Vaikuntha planets and so on. So the point is, Prabhupada ultimately make a very important point in the purport of these verses, in the 34th and 35 verses, is that enmity with the Lord has this consequence. The consequence is either you get impersonal liberation or you get uh, 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 Salokya liberation, like Vaikuntha planets and so on. So if enmity to the Lord has this consequence, then we can imagine what would it mean to have being served the Lord in a personal capacity, or maybe those who are engaged in the service of the Lord, those who are engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. So for them, it is a very Prabhupada is trying to encourage us that even a small devotional service can lead us to much more benefits. So like that, he is encouraging us through this verses. Okay, we go to the 36th.
36. Vyasadeva. The Lord himself, in his incarnation as son of Satyavati, Vyasadeva, will consider his complication of Vedic literature to be very difficult for the less intelligent persons with short life, and thus he will divide the tree of Vedic knowledge into different branches according to the circumstance of the particular age.
So it is actually compilation. Compilation means to compile the various Vedic, whatever Vedic wisdom is there into in the form of written literature. So this is about the incarnation of Vyasadeva, and Vyasadeva incarnation is already, and his pastime of compiling Vedic knowledge into different books and so on has already been discussed in the first canto. And uh, here Brahmaji is discussing with Narad Muni that in future this compilation is going to happen. So this activity was not has not occurred. This pastime had not occurred at the time when this Narad Brahma Samvad was going on. So this is something like foretelling by Brahmaji that in future an incarnation like Vyasadeva will come, literary incarnation, and he will do this compilation of Vedic literature. Why he will do this compilation? Because the Vedic knowledge will become very difficult for less intelligent people to understand. Specifically, the people of Kali Yuga who had a very short lifespan will not be able to understand this knowledge. So he will divide the tree of Vedic knowledge into different branches. So that is something which Prabhupada mentions in the purport. Already it is discussed in the first canto, and this knowledge will be compiled by Vyasadeva. So that is also an incarnation of the Lord. Okay, we go to the next one, 37th.
Buddha. When the atheist, after being well versed in the Vedic scientific knowledge, annihilate inhabitants of different planets, flying unseen in the sky on well built rockets, prepared by the great scientist Maya, the, the Lord, is this Maydana we are talking? Or
Yes,
May?
Maya.
May. The Lord will bewilder their minds by dressing himself attractively as Buddha and will preach on sub religious principles.
Hmm. So this pastime might sound a little unusual to you, who probably would already know about the incarnation of Lord Buddha as it is popularly discussed, uh, usually as it is discussed. Here, what we are discussing is, what we are saying is, when the atheists, after being well versed in the Vedic scientific knowledge, annihilate inhabitants of different planets, flying unseen in the sky on well built rockets, prepared by the great scientist Maya. Then the Lord will bewilder their minds by dressing himself attractively. So the pastime is about that uh, there would be atheists who would be well versed with Vedic knowledge, but these atheists will be involved in killing of different inhabitants of different planets who are flying unseen in the sky. So generally, when we hear about Lord Buddha's pastime, we hear it in this context that in the past, when the spiritualists of the society, they became kind of deviated, and they started using the teachings of Vedas in a different way, in a wrong way, and they, on the pretext of the teachings of the Vedas, they started doing animal killing, etc. Then, in order to distract these persons, Lord Buddha came and he preached to them that you don't follow the Vedas, you rather follow me. And that's how he kind of established the morality in the society, and so on. But in this specific verse, the pastime being discussed is somewhat different, where it is being mentioned that these atheists were involved in killing of some inhabitants of different planets flying unseen in the sky. So Prabhupada clarifies in the purport that this Buddha incarnation that is being discussed here is actually from a different Kali Yuga. It is not from that Kali Yuga in which we are at the moment living. So, in the previous class where we were discussing about Manmantar avatars, the avatar of Manu, we mentioned that uh, each uh, each day of Brahma is divided into 14, is being ruled by 14 Manus. But in each rule of Manu, there are 72 yugas. 72 yugas means Satyuga, Dwapar Yuga, Treta Yuga, and Kali Yuga. So this cycle will go 72 times. So one Manu will rule this planet, this yuga cycle, uh, and this yuga cycle will repeat by 72 times. So this Buddha avatar that is being discussed is from some different Kali Yuga. But ultimately, the objective of Buddha remains the same. When people take on to sub-religious principles, when people starts to rather deviate from religious principles and start to misuse those religious principles, then Lord Buddha comes, and rather than teaching them the ultimate or topmost religious principle, he teaches them some sub-religious principles. Some religious principles means, for example, morality, like for example, non-violence. So Buddha then teaches these principles, for example, ahimsa, etc., etc., which are understood easily by some generally intelligent people. For understanding even higher principles like devotional principles and spiritual principles, you need even more intelligence. So Buddha taught them some sub-religious principles, and these moralistic teachings uh, are mainly to bring them to not misuse the religious principles in the name of the Vedas. So that is what Prabhupada mentioned in the purport, that this Buddha avatar is from a different Kali Yuga, but ultimately the objective of Buddha avatar remains practically the same as we see in our case, where we see that Lord Buddha kind of preached to these people who were misusing the Vedas in the name of violence uh, to the animals. So that is what we need to understand. Now, what is the difference between sub-religious principles and religious principles, proper religious principles? In sub-religious principles, we mainly talk about morality, and in religious principles, we talk about the Lord. The Lord is in the center. So that is the main difference between sub-religious principles. So sub-religious principles cannot be called, in the true sense of the word, as spiritual principles. They are moral principles which are conducive for our spiritual advancement. But unless and until a principle is centered around the Supreme Lord, it cannot actually be called as a religious principles. Otherwise, it will be only a sub-religious principle.
So
So that is the
sub-religious principles are in Sattva Shuddha.
No, they are in mode of goodness. They are not sattva shuddha, because sattva shuddha, shuddha sattva actually is mainly centered around the Lord.
Okay.
Yeah. So we go ahead. Okay, please read the 38th.
Kalki. Thereafter, At the end of Kali Yuga, when there exists no topic on the subject of God, even at the residences of so-called saints and respectable gentlemen of the three higher castes, and when the power of the government is transferred to the hands of ministers elected from the low-born Shudra class or those less than them, and when nothing is known of the techniques of sacrifice, even by word, at that time the Lord will appear as supreme chastiser. Jai.
So the Kalki avatar background has been described here. So as the Kali Yuga will progress, the uh, the condition or the I would say the spiritual quotient or the spiritual index of the society in general will continue to go down and down and down. And ultimately, there will come a time where there will be no discussion about God. There will be the situation will be very, very difficult. Uh, the government power will be transferred to the hands of those people who are very morally low born. They have no morality, even no spirituality, what to speak of any spirituality. And there will be no techniques of sacrifice, yajna. At that time, when the society will degrade to very low levels, at that time, this Kalki avatar will come and then he will appear as a supreme chastiser. So here you can see the last stages of Kali Yuga are described in this verse, and what will actually uh, trigger the advent of Lord Kalki to protect the sadhus from the demoniac forces. Okay, we go to now 39th.
Guru Gurutava
Guna avatars. Guna avatars.
Gunavataras. Sorry,
Hmm.
Gunavataras. At the beginning of creation, there are Penans, myself, Brahma, and the Prajapatis, the great sages who generate them during the maintenance of the creation. There are Lord Vishnu, the demigods with the controlling powers, and the king of different planets. But at the end, there is irreligion, and then Lord Shiva and the atheist full of anger, etc. All of them are different representative manifestations of the energy of the supreme power of the Lord.
Hmm. Now you can see we might have heard about this trinity called Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. Like sometimes we say God, generator, and then destroyer, and then originator. So God, so Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. So like that, it is given a little detail about it. Guna avtaras. So Guna avtaras means Brahmaji is involved in creation, Lord Vishnu is engaged in maintenance, and Lord Shiva is engaged in the destruction of this universe. So the Lord has created these universes. In creation, Brahmaji will be helping as creator. Then, after the creation is done, the Lord Himself takes in charge of maintaining the universe as Lord Vishnu. And then, when sufficient time period has lapsed and the destruction period is about to come, then Lord Shiva becomes the in charge of the destruction of this universe. But here there are more details to it. At the beginning of creation, there are penance. So in the beginning of creation, we studied in the previous chapters also that there will be some penance, some yajna, some sacrifice. Then myself and the Prajapatis, the great sages who generate. So Brahmaji, together with this yajna and the Prajapatis, there is creation that happens. Then during maintenance of the creation, there will be Lord Vishnu, and along with Lord Vishnu, he will be supported by the demigods and also the with the controlling powers and the kings of different planets. So along with Lord Vishnu, there will be demigods and there will also be the kings of different planets. But at the end, when the pralaya is about to come, then first of all there will be irreligion, and then Lord Shiva and the atheists full of anger, etc., they will actually do the destruction. But whatever it is, either it is creation, maintenance, or destruction, all is happening mainly because of the energy of the supreme power of the Lord. So the Lord is engaged in all three aspects. Although we might read it as Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, but ultimately the creation also happens because of the Lord. The maintenance, the Lord personally himself takes in charge, and the destruction through Lord Shiva is also happening mainly through the Lord. So the point is that everywhere, even in maintenance, creation, and destruction, uh, the Supreme Lord is always involved all the time. Okay, now we go to the 40th verse.
Yeah. No once describe Lord's greatness. Okay. Who can describe completely the province of Vishnu?
Sorry, Mataji, we lost your voice. Hare Krishna, Vrindavaneshwari Mataji. Hare Krishna. Okay, maybe Rajneesh Prabhu, would you like to read this?
Hanji Prabhuji.
Yeah.
No one can describe Lord's greatness. Who can describe completely the prowess of Vishnu? Even the scientists who might have counted the particles of the atoms of the universe cannot do so, because it is He only who, in his form of Trivikrama, moved his leg effortlessly beyond the topmost planet, Satyalok, up to the neutral state of the three modes of material nature, and all were moved.
So, no problem. Now, what we have noticed here is that the section 1 to 39, where various incarnations of the Lord has now come to a close. So, the Brahmaji has described about the various Leela Avtaras, including in detail. So, you would have noticed that when the Lord Krishna's avatar was being described, it was described in great detail. Then Vyasdev, Buddha, Kalki, and ultimately Brahmaji concludes that section by describing the Guna Avtaras. So even the Guna Avtaras are also manifestation of the energy of the Lord. Now the mood is changing, the theme is changing. A new theme is being now introduced by Brahmaji. So after describing all these Leela Avtaras, Brahmaji want to clarify to Narad Muni that no one can describe Lord's greatness. Although after describing the greatness of the Lord by describing the process of creation, by describing the secondary process of creation where the Lord actually provides for the ingredients of the universe also, then finally describing the Leela Avtaras of the Lord in a long list was given by Brahmaji. Then Brahmaji, even after describing so much, still admits that no one can describe Lord's greatness. And he gives an example here. So it is important to notice the kind of example he's giving. He's saying that even the scientist who might have counted the particles of the atoms of the universe cannot do so. So counting the atoms of the universe, particles of atoms of the universe, or maybe in other words, you can say if someone can count the sand grains, all the different sand grain particles of the universe, of the whole universe, who can count that, because they are this is such a great task. So somebody, no scientist, no humanly powered living entity can do that kind of a activity. So but even if such a person can do this activity, he can count the number of atoms of the universe, still he cannot describe Lord greatness. Why? Because Lord greatness is so large, so great, that nobody can describe it. And here he gives this example because it is he only who in his form of Trivikrama moved his leg effortlessly beyond the topmost planet, Satyalok, up to the neutral state of the three modes of material nature. So he is describing the prowess of the Lord. So here the example he is taking is the example of Lord Vamandev. So when Lord Vamandev was extending his steps, he was taking 3 steps. So when he extended his foot, he extended his foot to such a great such a great extent that it even crossed over Satyaloka. So Satyaloka is the topmost planet. So when the Lord Vamandev was extending his foot, uh, it could even go beyond Satyaloka, and not only go beyond Satyaloka, it actually pierced the covering of the material universe. So the material universe is covered by 7 layers. So when the Lord was extending his foot, he pierced the covering of the material universe, and because his foot got pierced the material covering, the causal ocean, the water from the causal ocean actually started flowing into this material universe, and that is something which is known as Ganges, mother Ganges or river Ganges. So that current is known as the current of water started to flow in this material universe, that is known as Ganges. So the point is what Brahmaji is trying to say is that no one is equal to or greater than the Lord. Actually, the Lord is omnipotent. Even if we are very great scientists, we have a lot of knowledge, but we cannot understand the Lord by our own effort, by our own knowledge, because Lord is very great. Lord is too great for us to understand. That is what the message is from this verse number 40. Now, let us see what is being spoken in the verse number 41.
Can I continue? I got logged out.
Yes, Mataji. So you speak this verse and then we will switch over to Rajneesh ji.
Okay.
Okay. So we will first of all recite this verse, the 41st verse. This is written in Vasanta Tilaka. So you recall Vasanta Tilaka is recited in the same way as Brahma Samhita.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nantam vidamya hamami munayo grajaste.
Nantam vidami aham mami munayo grajaste.
Maya balasya purushasya kuto varaye.
Maya balasya purashasya kuto varaye.
Gayan gunan dashasha tanana adi devaha.
Gayan gunan dashasatanan adideva.
Shesho dhunapi samavasyati nasya param.
Shesho dunhapi samavasyati nashya
Nasya param.
param. Even
Okay.
Ananta Shesha cannot reach Lord's greatness.
Hmm.
Neither I nor all the sages born before you know fully the omnipotent personality of Godhead. So, what can others who are born after us know about him? Even the first incarnation of the Lord, namely Shesha, has not been able to reach the limits of such knowledge, although he is describing the qualities of the Lord with 1,000 phases. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
So in the previous verse, Brahmaji has started this topic that no one can describe Lord's greatness. So here he gives an example of scientists. Even a great scientist who can count all the atoms of the universe cannot do it because he's too great. And how, in order to describe the greatness of the Lord, he gives the example of Vamandev, that when he was extending his foot, he even pierced the material covering of the universe. Then now he gives another example. This time he gives example of Ananta Shesha. But let us try to understand the Sanskrit of the verse. Nantam vidami aham ami munayo grajaste. Na nantam. Nantam vidami. Vidami means knowing. Vidami vid means knowing. Aham. Aham means Lord Brahma is saying that I also do not know. And then Vidami Aham, Ami, Munayah means those sages, Agrajaste, Agraja. Agraja means who are Agraja to you. Agraja to you means Te actually is referring here to Narad Muni. So those sages who took birth before you, they also do not know the Lord. Neither I know the Lord, nor those sages who were born before you cannot understand fully the omnipotent personality of Godhead. Then Maya Balasya Purushasya Kuto Varaye. Then Kuto Avara. Avara actually means Avara actually means who are junior to you, who came after you. So then how can who were born after you, O Narada, could know about him? So when those people who were born before you could not know him, then how come the sages who were born after you could know the Supreme Lord? Then now he gives the example of Sheshanag. Gayan Gunan Dasha Shatanana Adi Devaha. So Shesho means Adi Dev Sheshanag. Gayan Gunan Dasha Shatanana Shat Anan. Anan means face. Like we have for Ravana we call him Dashanan. Dashanan means one who has 10 face. So Shatanan means one who has uh, Dash Shatanan. Dash Shatanan means 10 multiplied by 100. That many Anan, that many faces. So Dash Shatanan means 1000 faces. So Sheshanag is Gayan Gunan. He's glorifying the Lord. He's singing the glories of the Lord with 1000 faces, with 1000 mouths. But still, Dhunapi Samavasyati Nasya Param. But still, he is not able to param. He's not able to reach. He's not able to reach out to the limit of the knowledge about the glories of the Supreme Lord. So, even the first incarnation of the Lord, named Shesha, has not been able to reach the limit of such knowledge. Na asya param. Na asya param. Asya means his, the Supreme Lord's. Asya param. Ant means, param means the limit. So even the Sheshanag is describing the glories of the Lord with 1000 mouths. Still, he is not about to reach the limit of the glories of the Lord. So who is Sheshanag? Sheshanag actually is the first incarnation of the Lord. So he's actually Lord himself. So the Lord himself is not able to describe his own glories, because the moment he starts to describe his glories and about to reach the limit, his glories expand. His glories actually go beyond the description. So like that, the glories of the Lord is unlimited. So Brahmaji here is mentioning to Narad Muni, neither I know the Lord completely, nor those sages who were born before you know the Lord completely. Neither you know the Lord completely, nor the sages who were born after you know the Lord completely. And what to speak of these people? Even the incarnation of the Lord, Anant Dev, Anant Shesh, he is describing the glories with 1000 faces, but still he is not able to reach the limit of Lord's greatness. So that is the description he is giving. So Brahmaji in the first two verses 40 and 41 is trying to establish that the glories of the Lord are so great that nobody can actually understand the Lord completely. Okay, now we go to the another verse, and this time we will invite Rajneesh ji for recitation. So Rajneesh ji, this
हाँ जी बोल रहा हूँ जी
verse is
जी जी
also written in Vasant Tilaka
ओके
meter.
ओके
So we will continue to in the same tone.
ये शाम
Yesham, let me recite and then you kindly follow me.
ओके
Yesham sa esha bhagavan dayayedanantaha
ये शाम सईश भगवान ये अनंता
sarvatmanashrita pado yadi nirvyalikam
सर्वात्मनाश्रिता पदो यदि निर्व्यासलिकम्
te dustaramati taranti cha deva mayam.
Te dustaram ati teranti cha deva mayam.
Naisham mamaham iti dhi shva shragala bhakshe.
Nesham amaham iti dihi tava sragala bhagat bhakshe.
Shragala bhakshe.
Srigal bhakshe. Srigal.
Okay.
But anyone who is specifically favored by the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, due to unallowed surrender unto the service of the Lord, can overcome the insurmountable ocean of illusion and can understand the Lord. But those who are attached to this body, which is meant to be eaten at the end by dogs and jackals, cannot do so.
Now, Brahmaji is giving Narad Muni an idea how can one know the Lord. So previous two verses he gave the idea that how one cannot understand the Lord. So in the previous two verses, one cannot understand the Lord by his material qualification. So Brahmaji as a creator, or maybe the sages as the Prajapatis, or maybe the scientists having the qualification of being able to count all the countless atoms of the universe. So all these are material qualifications: creator, scientist, etc., etc. So nobody can understand the Lord completely by these material qualifications, by these material designations. But then how can one understand the Lord? One can understand the Lord only by Lord's mercy, only by the process of surrendering unto the Lord. That is the only process to understand the Lord. Now let us see how this verse bring us to that message. Yesham sa esha bhagavan dayayed anantaha. So, but anyone who is specifically favored by the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, due to unalloyed surrender, sarvatma sarvatmana ashrita pado yadi nirvyalikam. So here you can see this word sarva atmana ashrita padaha. Sarva atmana ashrita pada. Sarva atmana means in all ways, in all types, in all ways. And then ashrita pada means one who is surrendered. So yesham sa esha bhagavan, those people who are surrendered to the Lord in all respects. Nirvyalikam. Nirvyalikam means without any other motivation, only by the motivation of service to the Lord, only by the motivation to develop love and affection for the Lord. Other than any other motivation, anya abhilashita shunyam. With any other abhilasha, if somebody surrenders, then the Lord cannot be known. But if these people surrender to the Lord without any abhilasha, other than to satisfy the Lord, then only the Lord can be understood. Then te dustaram atitaranti cha deva mayam. And if somebody surrender to the Lord like this, then te dustaram atitaranti. Dustaram means which is insurmountable, can overcome the insurmountable ocean of illusion. Dustaram. Dustaram means insurmountable. Atitaranti. Atitaranti means he can cross over. Cha deva mayam. The insurmountable ocean of Maya, ocean of illusion or ocean of Maya. Such a person can understand the Lord. Then Naisham mamaham iti dhi shva shrigala bhakshye. Na esham mamaham. Na esham mamaham iti dhi shva shrigala bhakshye. But those who are attached to this body, which is meant to be eaten at the end by dogs and jackals, cannot do so. Shwa. Shwa is actually Sanskrit for dog. Shragal is Sanskrit for jackals. Bhakshe means eating. So Naesham mamaham iti dhi. Iti dhi means whose intelligence is actually only attached towards the body. And what kind of body? Ultimately, this body is of no use. This body ultimately will be eaten at the end by dogs and jackals. So those people who are attached to this body, uh, these kind of people who have bodily consciousness, who have materialistic consciousness, they cannot understand me. So that is the main understanding of this verse. In short, Lord Brahma is saying that people who are surrendered to the Lord without any uh, material motivation, without any inferior motivation, it is only with the motivation of service to the Lord, to devotion toward the Lord, only those people can understand the Lord. Only, and that too by His mercy. So we may be doing our devotion, but unless and until the Lord mercifully accepts our devotion, we cannot understand the Lord. And then what to speak of those people who are attached to this body, and this body ultimately is only to be eaten by dogs and jackals, who are, these people are only in the materialistic frame of mind. These people can never understand the Supreme Lord. Na esham mamaham. Na esham mamaham. Mamaham means those who are only engaged in the activities of mine and me, and who are only attached to this body, they cannot understand me. That is the main message from the Lord Brahma here. So here, the point that is being discussed here is that with materialistic vision, like the vision of a scientist who is very capable of counting all the atoms, or maybe Lord Brahma, who may think that I am the creator of the universe. So with this kind of attitude, one cannot understand the Lord, but Lord can only be understood by one who surrenders to the Lord according to Lord's terms. Then only you can understand the Supreme Lord. So here you can see how these three verses are kind of in one sense conflicting. Here Brahmaji is saying that in the verse number 41, neither I nor all the sages born before you know fully the omnipotent personality of Godhead. So here in the 41st verse, Brahmaji is saying that I cannot fully understand the Lord. But here in 42nd verse, he is giving the formula that how one can understand the Lord. Now you will see in the 43rd verse to 45th verse, he will give a long list. And in this long list, he will include his name also. Not only his name, but he will also include the name of Narada. That I also can understand the Lord, you also can understand the Lord, and many others can also understand the Lord because we have surrendered to the Lord. And that is the reason we can understand him. So you can see how in 40 and 41st verse, Brahmaji is saying that we cannot understand the Lord. Nobody can understand the Lord, including us. Neither the sages who came before you, nor the scientists, etc., etc. But now he gives the formula how we can understand the Lord, and then gives a long list of people of devotees who actually can or who could understand the Lord. And in this list, he gives his name also and the name of Narad Muni also. So Rajneeshji, please read from here. It's a long description here, long list.
Hare Krishna. O Narad, although the potencies of the Lord are unknowable and immeasurable still, because we are all surrendered souls, we know how he acts through Yogamaya potencies. And similarly, the potencies of the Lord are also known to the all-powerful Shiva, the great king of the atheist family, namely Prahlad Maharaja, Shambhu Manu, his wife Satrupa, his sons and daughters like Priyavrat, Uttanpad, Akuti, Devati, and Prasuti, Prasina Barhi, Ribhu, Anga, the father of Vain, Maharaja Dhruv, Ishkvaku, Hela, Muchkunda, Maharaj Janak, Gadhi, Raghu, Ambarish, Sagar, Gaya, Nahush,
Mandhata,
Mandhata,
Alark, Alark,
Alarka,
Shata Dhanve,
Sat Dhanva, Sat
Shat,
Dhanva,
hmm,
Sat Dhanva, Anu, Ranti Deva, Bhishma, Bali, Amruttarya, Amruttarya, Dilip, Saubhari,
Sabari,
Saubhari,
Utank,
Utank, Sibi, Devla,
Deval, Pippalad,
Deval, Pipilat, Saraswat,
Saraswat,
Uddhav,
Uddhav,
Prasara,
Parashar,
Prasar,
Bhuri Shen,
Purisen, Bibhisana,
Vibhishan, Vibhishan,
Vibhishan, Hanuman, Shukdev ji, Shukdev Goswami, Arjun,
Arshti,
Aristisena,
Arshti Shen,
Vidur,
Shrutadev,
Shrutadev, etc.
etc. So it's a long list. 43rd till 45th verse, there's a long list of names. So let us see. Although the potencies of the Lord are unknowable and immeasurable, still, because we are all surrendered souls, we are all surrendered souls. So in we, is counting both himself as well as Narad Muni. We know how he acts through Yog Maya potencies. Yog Maya. Now you understand the difference. Yog Maya and Mahamaya. We discussed this in the previous class. Rakesh ji also described in the beginning of the class today. How he acts through Yog Maya potencies. And similarly, the potencies of the Lord are also known to all powerful Shiva. So he's including himself, he's including Narad Muni, and then he is including Lord Shiva, and then Prahlad Maharaj, Swambhu Manu, Shatrupa, Priyavrat, Uttanpal, Akuti, Devhuti, Prasuti, Prachin Barhi, Ribhu, Anga, Maharaj Dhruva, Ikshvaku, Ail, Muchkunda, and then Maharaj Janak, then Gadhi, Raghu, Ambarish, like that. So there is a long list. So in the previous verses, he's saying that nobody can know, including me and you and the sages, etc., etc. But now here he's saying that we also know him. We can also know him. How? Because if we follow the process, then it is possible to know the Lord. So that is what he's explaining here. So the point here is, by material qualifications, one cannot know the Lord. Even one cannot know even the material energy of the Lord. For example, we have big spaceships. If we want to know the millions and billions of planets in the universe, can we know? No, we are only able to explain and understand only a fraction of the space, outer space, that is here with us. So with material qualification, we cannot know even the material energy of the Lord. Then what to speak of the spiritual subject matter? So spiritual subject matter is much more subtler than the material knowledge. So it is very difficult to understand the spiritual subject matter by material tools. It is not possible. So for understanding spiritual subject matter, we need spiritual tools. And what is that spiritual tool? That spiritual tool is surrender to the Lord. That surrender to the Lord in simple terms is known as bhakti, is known as devotional service. So ultimately, if people want to understand the Lord by material means, they cannot understand. And sometimes when they try to understand the Lord by material means and they cannot understand, ultimately they start to conclude that there is no God, we cannot know God, and etc., etc. And these are something like atheists. So we cannot understand the Lord simply by experimentation. We can understand only by surrender, according to the authorities listed here. So you know the different authorities here. Like for example, the description is given about Hanuman, like Vibhishan, like Shukdev Goswami, like that. Like we have examples of, for example, Uttanpad, Priyavrata, etc., etc. Now here you may say that Uttanpad, the description of Uttanpad as it comes is where he is not interested in accommodating his own son Dhruva. So sometimes we have the impression of Uttanpad that who was a very henpecked husband. Henpecked husband means Joru ka gulam. He was under the control of his wife. But here his list, his name appears in the list. So the point is that Uttanpad might be a henpecked husband in the earlier part of his life, but later on he might have progressed to the point that he would have surrendered to the Lord and would have actually become the devotee of the Lord, and that's how he could also understood the Lord. So there's a long list given here, and in most of the lists we find that the people are either of Brahmanical nature or maybe Kshatriyas. So the lists are typically comprising of Brahmanas and Kshatriyas. And Brahmanas and Kshatriyas are considered to be very spiritually capable, very spiritually able to know the Lord. So now in the next verse, in the 46th verse, the description goes to the point that not only Brahmanas and Kshatriyas can know the Lord, but also those people who are less gifted spiritually. Those who are less gifted spiritually, those who have less spiritual faculties to understand the subject matter of spirituality, adhyatma, etc., etc. Even such people, if they're willing to surrender to the Lord, they can also understand the Supreme Lord. So we will read this verse. So uh, please read together with me, Rajneesh ji. ते वै विदन्ति तरन्ति च देवमायाम्
ते वै वेदान्ति अतितरन्ति च देवमाया
स्त्रीशूद्रहूणशबरा अपि पापजीवाः
त्रिशूद्रहूनसबरा पापजीव
यद्यद्भुतक्रमपरायणशीलशिक्षा
यद्यबहुतुक्रम प्रयान् शिला शिक्षा
त्रियग्जन अपि किम् ओश्रुता धारणाये
यज्ञने अपि किं यो श्रुता श्रुता धारणाये
Yeah, please read.
Surrendered souls, even from groups leading sinful lives, such as women, the laborer class, the mountaineers and the Siberians, or even the birds and beasts, can also know about the signs of Godhead and become liberated from the clutches of the delivering energy by surrendering unto the pure devotees of the Lord and by following in their footsteps in devotional service.
Now there are various Hare Krishna. There are various categories given here. That te vai vidanti atitaranti cha deva mayam. Te vai means undoubtedly. They can also, such people also can actually cross over the deva mayam, can also cross over the ocean of Maya. And what are these classification of people? Stri, the women class; the Shudra, the laborer class; the Huna. The Hunas are people who are living in the mountains. The Shabara. Shabara means those who are living in very cold regions like Siberia, etc. Those are considered even lower than the Shudras. Api Papa Jivaha. Yadya Adbhuta Krama Parayana Shila Shikshas. How can they understand the Lord? They can also understand the Lord if Yadya, if they take shelter, they take refuge of Parayana Shila Shikshas. Parayana Shila means those who are devoted, those who are devotees of the Lord. Those who are devotee of the Lord, if these people take shelter of these devotees of the Lord and take shiksha, and they take guidance into the devotional service of the Lord, they can understand. Not only they can understand, but Triyak Jana means those who are even birds and beasts. Apikim u shruta dharana ye. So even the birds and beasts can understand the Supreme Lord. Only the given condition is that they take shelter to the teachings of the devotees of the Lord. So those people who are surrendered soul like Parayan Shila, Surrendered soul means the devotees, para and shila. Shiksha means guidance and education. If these people who are stri, shudra, huna, shabara, they are kind of those category of people who are not very spiritually gifted. Not spiritually gifted means those who are not born with those qualities which can uh, which can actually elevate them to the spiritual consciousness, or to they are capable of understanding the spiritual subject matter. They are not so gifted to understand the spiritual subject matter like brahmanas and the kshatriyas can do. So such people can also, if they take shelter, they take refuge to the devotees of the Lord, they take education, they take guidance from the devotees of the Lord, such people can also understand the Supreme Lord. So that is the potency of the devotional service. So in the subject matter of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the Hindi class that we are taking on Wednesdays, in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, we understand that what is the qualification for devotional service. Simply, if you have taken the birth in the human form of life, you are qualified to perform devotional service. Now, after performing devotional service, whether you will advance fast or less or no, or less fast, that all depends upon the degree of surrender you exhibit, or degree of surrender you want to offer to the Lord. So that is the only qualification we need. So here, if you take guidance under the pure devotees, one can easily have God realization. So one only need willingness to approach such a devotee. That is the only qualification need if you want to understand the Supreme Lord. So with this 40 to 46th, impossible to understand the greatness of Lord without his mercy. So that is the message Lord Brahma is here giving to Narad Muni. Okay, now we come to the last section of today's class, 47 to 49. Now these are little difficult verses. So probably in 10 minutes we will try to understand it. So Rajni ji, so we have few more recitation to do. Now, before we do the recitation, I will give you a little background. So Narad Muni has been explained by Brahmaji about the Leela Avtaras of the Lord. Then the topic changed to the point that nobody can understand the Lord completely by his own material qualification. But then how one can understand the Lord? It can understand the Lord by surrender. The surrender could be to the Lord. The surrender can also be to the devotees of the Lord. And the surrender to the devotees of the Lord means that one is willing to take guidance, one is willing to take association of these devotees, and when one is willing to take association and guidance from the devotees, he can also understand the Lord. Now here, in 47th verse onwards, Brahmaji changed the topic once again. So he has already described the Leela Avtaras. He has also described about the Purusha Avtaras. He has described about the Guna Avtaras of the Lord. Now he is describing some other potencies of the Lord, which is Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So different aspects of the absolute truth are being described in these verses. And ultimately he says that among Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, it is actually the Bhagavan feature which is the topmost feature. And that is something which can be understood by the devotional service. So better we understand the Bhagavan feature of the Lord, which is the ultimate feature of the Lord, by devotional service. So that is the message given in these three verses. So here the Brahman feature of the Lord and the Paramatma feature of the Lord are being described in these 6 lines. Shashwat prashantam abhayam pratibodha matram.
Shashwat prasantam abhayam pratibodha matram.
Shuddham samam sadasatah paramatma tattvam.
Shuddham samam sad asat paramatma tattvam.
Shabdo nayat purukarakavan kriyartho.
Shabdo nayatra purukar kavan kariyartho.
Maya paretyabhimukhe cha vilajjamana.
Maya pareti abhimukhe cha vilajyamana.
Tadvai padam bhagavatah paramasya pumso.
Tadvai padam bhagavatah paramasya pumso.
Brahmeti yad vidurajasra sukham vishokam.
Brahmeti yad vidur Ajasra Sukham Vishokram.
Please read.
Paramatma is eternally peaceful and fearless, bestows knowledge is pure and equal to all. Brahman, which is known as unlimited happiness and freedom from grief, is one aspect of the Supreme Lord, which words with action as their object and words with many case relations cannot describe. Maya being ashamed cannot stand before the Lord.
So this is a little complicated verse. And if you read Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary, and at the same time you read Srila Prabhupada's commentary, both Srila Prabhupada and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has given a different interpretation of the same verse. So what I have taken here is the interpretation of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And why I have done so? Mainly because the Subodhani series written by Gaurang Darshan Prabhu picks up the explanation by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. But I will explain you both the versions. I will explain you the version by Prabhupada. I will also explain you the version of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So in the version that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has explained this verse, he has interpreted this verse as that this verse describes the Brahman potency of the Lord, the Brahman aspect of the Lord, and the Paramatma aspect of the Lord. So in the first canto where we have discussed this verse, where Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavan iti Shabdyate. That verse we had discussed already in the first canto, where the three aspects of the absolute truth have been discussed, have been mentioned. So similarly, here also the two aspects of the absolute truth, Parabrahman, the Supreme Lord, the Bhagavan, has been discussed, which is Paramatma aspect as well as the Brahman aspect. Now, how do we know that? So you see this Paramatma Tattvam in the second line, Paramatma Tattvam. So before this, Paramatma Tattvam, whatever is described in the Sanskrit, Shashwat, Prashantam, Abhayam, Pratibodhamatram, Shuddham, Samam, Sadasat. So all these qualities are described as qualities of Paramatma. Then Brahmeti Yad Vidur. Brahmeti Yad Vidur means the qualities of Brahman are described in the next four lines. What are these qualities? Shabdona Yatra Puru Karakavan Kriyartho Maya Paraiti Abhimukhe Cha Vilajyamana Tadvai Padam Bhagavatah Paramasya Pumso Brahmeti Yad Vidur Ajasra Sukham Vishokham. Like that. So the point is, in first two lines, the qualities of the Paramatma feature of the Lord are described, and in the four lines, the following four lines, the qualities of the Brahman aspect of the Supreme Lord has been described. So in nutshell, this is the way Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has approached this verse. But if you read Srila Prabhupada's commentary, Srila Prabhupada's translation, Prabhupada has kind of taken all the 6 lines, and in the Sanskrit that he has interpreted in these verse, he has described all the 6 lines as the supreme absolute truth, like the topmost aspect of the Lord, which is the Bhagavan aspect of the Lord. So all the 6 lines he has dedicated to describing the Bhagavan feature of the Supreme Lord. So both are kind of correct, because the way Srila Prabhupada has picked up the meaning of the Sanskrit words is perfectly correct, but the way Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has picked up the meaning of the Sanskrit words is also perfectly correct. This is the beauty of the explanation by both the acharyas. So they both give the different understanding of the same verse, but while giving the different understanding, they both remain within the devotional principles, devotional philosophies of the philosophy of the pure devotional service. They both remain within those boundaries only, and the meaning comes out the same, that Bhagavan is superior to Paramatma and Brahman. So I will mainly talk about the explanation as given by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So what is that? So as I mentioned, the first 2 lines are mainly about the Paramatma feature. And what is that? Shashwat. So Shashwat means Shashwat means eternally peaceful. Paramatma is eternally peaceful. Abhayam means he is fearless also. And then Pratibodha Matram. Pratibodha Matram means he is bestows knowledge. Pratibodha Matram. Bodh means knowledge. So he gives knowledge to all. Now, what does it mean? Shashwat Prashantam Abhayam. So how can we understand this? So Paramatma feature of the Lord. What is the Paramatma feature of the Lord? The Lord is situated in our heart. And while he is situated in the heart, what is the job of this Paramatma feature? Updrashta Anumanta. Updrashta means he is actually only the observer. He is only observing our actions, our deeds, our karma, etc., etc. So he's simply an observer. And an observer, he is neutral. And anyone who is neutral has to be uh, eternally peaceful. Shashwat Prashantam. So how do we understand it? Now, in the Bhagavan feature of the Lord is actually biased towards the devotees of the Lord. He is not neutral. And because he is not neutral, he cannot be Prashantam. He cannot be peaceful. Say, for example, in the pastime of Mahabharat war, when Arjuna took this vow that next day I will kill Jayadratha, and if I am not able to kill, I will enter into fire. Now, Lord Krishna, and then he peacefully went to sleep. But Lord Krishna became worried. He was not Prashantam. He was not satisfied. He was not very happy. He was not very peaceful. Why? Because Arjuna is the devotee of the Lord. If the devotee has taken a vow, the Lord has now obliged to make sure that his vow get fulfilled. So Lord Krishna was thinking that Arjuna had taken such a severe vow. Now next day, if Jayadratha doesn't even appear for battle, then how can he be killed? And if he will not be killed, then Arjuna will enter into fire. Now the onus is on Lord Krishna to make sure that the vow gets fulfilled. The point here is, dear devotees, that in the Paramatma feature of the Lord, the job of that aspect is that feature of the Lord is to be neutral, to be an observer. And as an observer, if one is neutral, then only he has to be Prashantam. He can be eternally peaceful. Like, for example, if I'm biased, so for example, if in India-Pakistan match, I'm an Indian, so I will be biased towards the win of India. If India doesn't win, I will not be very happy. I will be very distressed. Similarly, if Pakistan doesn't win, Pakistani will not be very happy. But an Australian who is a neutral, who doesn't bother whether India wins or Pakistan wins, he will be Prashantam. He will be peaceful. He will be peacefully drinking cold drink or whatever, enjoying there. So, Shashwat Prashantam Abhayam. Pratibodha Matram. Pratibodha Matram means he reveals awareness. He reveals awareness. He reveals awareness means, as we understood from Bhagavad Gita, that from me only comes knowledge, comes remembrance, comes forgiveness, and so on. So, Pratibodha Matram. Bodha means knowledge. So, he is Prashantam, he is Abhayam, he is Pratibodha Matram. He is Shuddham. He is Shuddham. Shuddham means he is pure. And then he is Samam, Sad Asat. Samam Asadas, Sad Asat. So as Paramatma, he is situated in the heart of a pig also. As Paramatma, he is also situated in the heart of a Devata also. So Sad Asad. Sad Asad means whether the body is of a Devata's body, Sat, or Asat means very impure body like that of a pig, he's Samam, he's equal. He doesn't differentiate between whether he's situated in the body of a pig or he's situated in the body of a Devata. Like that, he is Sad Asat. That is Paramatma Tattvam. So that is the description of Paramatma Tattvam. So Paramatma is eternally peaceful and fearless, bestows knowledge, is pure and equal to all. So this, in 2 lines, we have discussed the qualities of Paramatma. Now in the next 4 lines, we will discuss about the qualities of Brahman. The first quality is Shabdo Nayatra Puru Karakavan Kriyartho. What does it mean? Shabdo Nayatra Puru Karakavan Kriyartho. Now, Brahman is the impersonal aspect of the Lord. It does not have any form, it does not have any qualities, does not have any gunas, etc., etc., does not have any attributes. So, the point is, he cannot be described in words. Shabdona yatra puru karakavan kriyartho. Karakavan kriyartho. What does it mean? For Brahman, we cannot say that Brahman did this or it belongs to Brahman. It is the quality of Brahman because it is the that aspect of the Lord which is formless, which is the formless aspect of the Lord. So it is indescribable by word. So Shabdo na yatra puru karakavan. Now Brahman, which is known as the unlimited happiness. So we will go to the translation later on, but let us see word by word, line by line. Then Maya parayati abhimukhe cha vilajyamana. So in the next line, the description is given a little indirect. So what is mentioned that it is that aspect of Bhagavan before whom Maya feels ashamed to come. Maya parayati abhimukhe cha vilajyamana. So it is that aspect of the Lord before whom Maya becomes ashamed. So that is the second line. Then the third line is Tad vai padam bhagavatah paramasya pumso. Tad vai padam. Tadvai Padam means it is one aspect of the Supreme Lord. It is not the complete aspect of the Supreme Lord, but it is only one aspect. Padam. Padam means only one fraction. Tadvai Padam Bhagavatah Paramasya Pumso. Then last line is Brahmeti Yad Vidur Ajasra Sukham Vishokham. Then Ajasra Sukham means unlimited happiness. Ajasra Sukham means unlimited happiness. And then Vishokham. Vishokham means it is dissipation of grief. So when the practitioner reaches this Brahman realization or enters into Brahma Jyoti, then he feels Sukha and he also feels dissipation of grief. Now here, Sukham means not positive happiness. This Sukham actually is coming off because of absence of material distress. So like that, you can see how the Paramatma aspect of the Lord and the Brahman aspect of the Lord has been described by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Prabhupada has analyzed the Sanskrit differently, and in this verse, Prabhupada describes everything, all these aspects mainly related to Bhagavan feature of the Lord, the Supreme Lord. So we will not go into that detail how Prabhupada has described it. But one example I can give you is Param Atma Tattvam. Param Atma Tattvam. So here Paramatma Tattvam is being discussed by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, but Prabhupada divides this verse as Param Atma Tattvam. So Param Atma Tattvam means the Bhagavan feature of the Lord. He is actually the Param Atma Tattva. Atma Tattva means what is supposed to be understood by the devotee, that is the Param Atma Tattva. So whatever we are expected to understand from spiritual perspective, that is the Param Atma Tattva. So that is how Prabhupada has described this particular verse as Bhagavan feature of the Lord. Okay, now we go to the 48th verse. So please read, Prabhu.
Ji. Jnanis and yogis give up their path. The yogis and sannyasis who concentrated their minds on Brahman and Paramatma finally gave up the sadhana of seeing non-difference, being indifferent to that practice as much as Indra is indifferent to digging a well.
Yeah. Now you can understand that this verse also is described differently by Prabhupada and by Chakravarti Thakur. So the way Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes this is that you see here in this particular verse we are describing about Paramatma and Brahman, and the yogis and jnanis are only interested in meditating upon the Paramatma feature of the Lord or maybe the Brahman feature of the Lord, and ultimately the yogis achieve the moksha, achieve the sayujya mukti, which is the liberation. So when the yogis and the jnanis are meditating on the Brahman aspect and the yogi is meditating on the Paramatma aspect, but ultimately both of them get liberated. They get liberated into
Brahman and Paramatma. And the use of the sadhana.
Ultimately, when they get liberated, they enter into Brahma Jyoti. Now, when they enter into Brahma Jyoti, are they doing any practices of any yoga sadhana or any jnana yoga or any dhyana yoga? Are they doing anything like that? No, they don't do anything like that. So, throughout their lives, they are trying to meditate upon either Brahman or Paramatma. And ultimately, when they use their senses to meditate upon these Paramatma and Brahman feature, they ultimately enter into Brahma Jyoti, and then they give up all their path. So the yogis and sannyasis who concentrate their minds on Brahman and Paramatma finally give up the sadhana of seeing non-difference. So the sadhana they perform before entering into Brahman, they give up all that sadhana. They don't meditate upon Paramatma and Brahman feature. They are simply enjoying in their floating into the Brahma Jyoti. So the point here is what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is giving is that yogis and jnanis, they do a sadhana throughout their life to achieve liberation. And when they achieve liberation, when their prayojan, when their goal is achieved, they drop their sadhana. They don't do their sadhana any longer. So it is same, and the example is given is as much as Indra is indifferent to digging a well, as much as Indra is indifferent to digging a well. Now, how to understand this analogy? Now, people who are interested in achieving heavens, achieving or becoming Indra in their next life, they need to do a lot of pious activities. So, pious activities, an example of pious activities is digging a well. So, when you dig a well, you do a community service from which many people are benefited. So, when you do a lot of pious activities, you go to heaven and maybe you may become Indra, the king of heavens. So, if once you have become Indra, now there is no need for Indra to dig a well because he has already achieved his motivation, he's achieved his goal. He has go to heavens, he has become an Indra. So the point is, like the Jnanis and Yogis do their sadhana of meditating onto the Brahman or Paramatma, they leave their sadhana when they achieve their goal. Like when somebody, a living entity, when he wants to go to heavens, he digs a well to go to heaven. When he achieves that goal, when he becomes that Indra or when he reach that heavens, he does not have to dig a well any longer. So similarly, the Jnanis and Yogis also give up their paths. So the point is, because the Jnanis and Yogis give up their path is inferior. Their path is inferior to which path? Their path is inferior to the path of bhakti. Because when the devotee performs the bhakti, how the bhakti is performed? By Shravan and Kirtan. When the devotee performs this bhakti by doing Shravan and Kirtan, and when he achieves his desired goal, which is the lotus feet of the Lord, he continues to do the same path. He continues to do the Shravan and Kirtan even after liberation also, even after achieving his goal also. So because the path of bhakti continues to be followed by the devotee, continues to be followed by the sadhaka, it is a much more superior path. And the path of Jnanis and Yogis actually is the inferior path, because when the Jnanis and Yogis achieve their goal, they leave their path. Right? And why would somebody leave their path? Only because it is inferior. Then only it will leave their path. But Bhakta does not leave their path because it is superior. He continues to follow this path. So like this, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has described the explanation of this verse. But Prabhupada describes it in a different way. He describes it in a way that uh, uh, he describes it the way he has described the previous verse, the 47th verse. In the 47th verse, what I mentioned to you, the 47th verse, Prabhupada has described the whole verse as the Bhagwan aspect. So he's saying that Prabhupada describes this that when a devotee is already engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, he is meditating upon the Bhagavan aspect of the Lord, then there is no need of artificial control of mind and mental speculation or meditation as performed by the Jnanis and Yogis. And one gives up such a process as the heavenly king Indra forgoes the trouble of digging a well. Now here the analogy is utilized in a different way. Indra is the in charge of rains. Hmm? He has so much control over water. Now, because he has so much control over water, does he really need a well? He does not need a well. Similarly, a devotee who is already engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, eh, by engaging himself in the devotional service of the Lord, he is automatically controlling his mind and senses. But the jnanis and yogis have to concentrate their mind, have to really engage their senses in concentrating their mind, in controlling the mind, in engaging the senses in meditation, etc., etc. So the devotee does not need to do all these difficult activities. He is simply interested in Shravan and Kirtan. He's enjoying. He's his mind is automatically getting controlled. His senses are already under control, etc. Like Indra does not need a well because he's already in charge of much more greater body of water like rains, etc. Similarly, a devotee does not need artificial control of senses and mind because he's already engaged in a very uh, sweet devotional service to the Lord. His mind is senses are already engaged, so he does not need to engage like jnanis and yogis. So like that, both by the explanation by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur as well as by explanation by Prabhupada, the point is that Bhagavan aspect is superior to Paramatma and Brahman. So now, have you understood both the explanation by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur as well as Srila Prabhupada? Just want to take some feedback from the class. Have you understood?
Not really, Prabhuji. I would appreciate if you explain again.
Okay. So I spent roughly almost 20 minutes to do the explanation, not to hear that feedback. But whatever.
It's not your fault, Prabhuji. It's our minds
No,
who
no,
are.
I appreciate that you gave an honest feedback. I appreciate that you gave the honest feedback. The point here is, Mataji, is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explained verse number 47 as the qualities of Paramatma and Brahman. So Brahman and Paramatma are two aspects of the Supreme Lord.
Yeah.
Do you understand that much?
Yes, I
Okay.
understand.
So in the first two lines, the qualities of Brahman are explained.
Yes.
Sorry, Paramatma are explained. And in
Yeah.
the next four lines, the qualities of Brahman is explained by Vishwanath
Yeah.
Chakravarti Thakur.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, Brahman and Paramatma are the object of meditation of whom? Are they object
Of
of
the
meditation of
yogis
devotees?
and no. Of
No,
the yogis and jnanis.
yogis and jnanis, right? So the next verse, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that jnanis and yogis meditate upon Brahman and Paramatma,
Yeah.
and after successfully doing that meditation, they achieve their goal. What is
Yeah.
their goal?
To achieve Bhagavan feature.
No, yogi and jnani don't go to Bhagavan feature. They go to Brahma Jyoti. Their
Then what
they,
is the goal?
their goal is Brahman. Their goal is Brahman. Their goal is Brahman. Their goal is moksha, liberation,
Acha.
isn't it? So the point in the next verse is that jnanis and yogis, after doing that meditation, they ultimately go to Brahma Jyoti, and when they achieve Brahma Jyoti, when they achieve moksha, they do their meditation there also.
Of course not. They have achieved the goal, no?
They have achieved the goal. They don't do any meditation on
Yeah.
Brahman and right.
Yeah.
So they leave their meditation. They leave their
Mm.
sadhana.
Mm.
They leave their sadhana, isn't it?
Yes.
So because they leave their sadhana, what does it mean is actually it means that because their process of sadhana is inferior, that is why they leave it.
Acha. Okay.
That
So,
is why they leave it.
all right. I now remember. Once
That is why
Guru
they leave it.
Maharaj said that bhakti is both the process as well as the goal,
As the goal. Correct.
but it
Now the
is not
devotee,
so.
yeah,
Okay.
now go to Prabhupada's explanation. Prabhupada's explanation of 47th verse is that everything, all these qualities are actually the Bhagavan qualities.
Mm.
Shashwat, Prashantam, Abhayam,
Yes.
Pratibodha Matram. Here,
Yes.
Pratibodha Matram he explains differently. Pratibodha
Yes.
Matram by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is bestower of knowledge. But Pratibodha Matram, Prabhupada describes is that opposite to material.
Acha.
Prati means opposite. Matram means material, like matra
Acha.
sparshastu kaunteya.
Yes, yes.
Pratibodha matram. So Pratibodha matram, Prabhupada explains it in a way that it is spiritual. It is not material. Like that, I'm not going into the detail of all the explanation, but the point is, all these words by Prabhupada has been described as Bhagavan feature, as the topmost feature.
Okay.
Now, once he has described this verse as the Bhagavan feature, not as Paramatma and not as Brahman.
Yes.
Now, how do you explain the second verse, the 48th verse?
Okay.
So the 48th verse, he describes it that that in this stage, in the Bhagavan state, in this transcendental state, there is no need of artificial control of mind, mental speculation or meditation, which is performed by Jnanis and Yogis.
Okay. So
Yeah,
actually he's going to that only, but in a different
in a different way, in a different
Yeah.
way,
Yeah.
in a different way.
Yeah.
So this is the beauty of the this devotional literature, where different acharyas might give a little different explanation,
Yes.
all
Yes.
within the grammatical rules of Sanskrit, all within the purview of the Vyakaran of Sanskrit, but all also at the same time in the purview of the devotional philosophy.
So, Prabhuji, you said that you have accepted Vishwanath Prabhupada's explanation to the verse that you were describing about the Brahman feature, etc. So, my question is, what like Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he is saying that these are the features of Brahman and not Bhagavan.
See, ultimately the message of both the acharyas is same. Ultimately,
Yes,
the
that
message
I
of both the acharya
understand.
is
But
Bhagavan
there
is
must
superior
be
to Paramatma and Brahman. Yeah.
yes, yes, that I accept.
Hmm.
But there must be some explanation given by him, because of which we should also accept the fact that it is like not
No, it is
Bhagavan.
simply understanding the Sanskrit in a different way, but coming to the same conclusion.
Yes.
Say, for
Okay.
example, if you you need to study that in detail. I don't want to go into really hair splitting analysis.
Okay. Okay.
Say, for example, samam sad asata. Samam sad asata, the way we explained by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur angle is that either Paramatma is in the body of a pig or in the body of a devata. Sad asat. Sad asat means one is sattvic, one is not so sattvic.
Achha.
So devata body is sattvic, pig body is not so sattvic. Sad asat. But Prabhupada takes the another meaning of sad asat. He's taking the meaning sad asat means cause and effect.
Okay.
So sad
I
asat
thought
also means cause and
Atma.
effect.
Yeah.
Sad asat also means cause and effect. So sad
Achha.
asat can have many meanings in Sanskrit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it is the point is analyzing Sanskrit properly, but coming out with a different meaning.
Okay.
But yet the conclusion is same. That is the beauty.
Okay. 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 Thank you so much.
It took me 2 hours to understand these two verses today.
Then we are very fortunate. We just took 20 minutes of yours. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So that is the point. I wanted to understand both the meanings. Yeah. Anyway, now we coming to the conclusion of the class 49. So Rajni ji, please kindly read this if you are still there.
Anji, 49.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Bhagavan is the ultimate benefactor.
Hmm.
Bhagavan is the bestower of results of all processes, and from him alone the highest perfection of sadhana prescribed by the nature of one's bhav appears. When the body dissolves after the departure of dhatus, the jiva, being unborn, is not dissolved like the ether in the body.
Now here, ultimately, what is being mentioned here is either you are a yogi or a jnani. Either you achieve impersonal liberation, or if you are a devotee, you achieve the lotus feet of the Lord. Whatever result you are getting, it is not the Paramatma feature, it is not the Brahman feature which is giving you that result. The bestower of that result is only Bhagavan in all the cases. In the case of a devotee, certainly it has to be Bhagavan. In the case of Jnani, in the case of Yogi, Also, it is the Bhagwan feature of the Lord, which is the ultimate benefactor, who is giving you that benefit. So Bhagwan is the bestower of results of all processes. All processes means either it is karma, jnana, yoga, etc., whatever it is, or bhakti. And from him alone, the highest perfection of sadhana prescribed by the nature of one's bhava appears. So you might be doing your meditation as a jnani. You might be doing your meditation as a yogi. You might be doing karma kanda. But ultimately, the ultimate benefit of devotional service is also the benefit of that devotional process is also given to you by Bhagwan only. And then somebody might ask that if we are doing our practice and we are not able to complete our practice, then what happens? Then the next line is given. When the body dissolves after the departure of the dhatus, the jiva being unborn is not dissolved like the ether in the body. So the jiva is not dissolved. He continues to perform those activities in the next life, like that. So the meaning is the devotees of the Lord should not perform yoga or jnana for attaining the result, namely prema for the Lord. Ultimately, devotional service is something which we are supposed to do, and even if we are doing jnana and yoga, the ultimate result is bhakti only. Ultimate result is prema only, and the bestower is Supreme Lord Bhagavan only. So last three verses a little bit complicated, but even if you are not able to understand them in nitty-gritty detail, the point is, if we understand that the Bhagavan aspect is superior to Paramatma and Brahman, he is the ultimate benefactor, then it is good enough. Okay, with that we come to the conclusion. All glory to Srimad Bhagavatam, all glory to Srila Prabhupada. Any comments, questions, we can discuss now. So thank you for that last part, staying back here to digest all that difficult Sanskrit meanings and so on. So appreciate your patience. Any questions or any doubts we can discuss?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Shivanji. Yes, sir. Yes. Okay. So you were saying Hare Krishna is goodbye. Thank you very
Hare
much.
Krishna.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Nana Mataji.
Hare
Okay.
Krishna.
Hare
Baba.
Krishna.
Okay.
Hare
So no questions and no comments?
Too
Okay.
much to take in.
Too much. Okay.
But it was very good for me. I am
Okay. Okay.
really
Was a
happy.
good.
No problem. No problem. Okay.
Today
Hare
was
Krishna,
a
Prabhuji.
really.
Hare Krishna, Vidya Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Yeah.
Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Very
Hare
nice.
Okay, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Sadhana on your part.